If you love God, listen closely. There is one decision that can shut the door of His forgiveness forever. Many are making it without realizing it and believe they are still safe. In the next few minutes, you're going to find out if you are already crossing that line. Picture this for a moment. It's night. The house is silent. You're staring at the ceiling with that weight in your chest. I think I ruined everything with God. I think I did something He will never forgive. You replay words you said, thoughts you had, old mistakes, broken promises. You search for messages that talk about condemnation. You remember harsh phrases that seem to confirm your worst fear. You close your eyes with one question that will not leave. What if it is already too late for me? If you've ever felt like this, you are not alone. And this message is not here to crush you with more fear. It's here to show you clearly what almost no one has explained well. Because some people live for years tormented by a lie, and others walk dangerously close to something truly serious without even suspecting it. Today we're going to talk about the one sin that has no forgiveness. Not with cheap sensationalism, not with spiritual shock value, but with God's truth and something very concrete. What it is, what it is not, how someone gets there, and how to know if you are safe or if you're getting dangerously close. Before we go on, I need to ask you one simple thing. Stay until the end. Don't cut this message in half. What we're about to deal with is far too serious for quick conclusions. You need to see the full picture. When we finish, I want you to be able to say with certainty, "Now I understand. Now I know where I stand with God." Let's start by breaking a lie that has stolen peace from so many people. Maybe someone told you that the unforgivable sin is saying a horrible phrase in a moment of anger, or having a filthy, dark, repulsive thought, or denying God once, or drifting away for a season, and now thinking there's no way back. If God's forgiveness depended on you never failing with your words, never doubting, never falling, no one would have hope. The essence of grace is precisely this. God knows the worst about you and still opens a real door to lift you up. So if God can forgive so much, why does the Bible speak of something that has no forgiveness? Because there is something completely different from a slip, a fall, a dark season. There is something deeper, more dangerous, and more deliberate. Think of someone who, again and again, is confronted with the truth. They don't just hear words. They see change. They see transformation. They see light entering their environment. Deep down, they know God's working calling, correcting, guiding. But they choose to harden themselves, not out of ignorance, not out of weakness, but out of pride. Every time the light comes close, they trample it. Every time God draws near, they accuse Him. Every time good is manifested, they point at it and call it evil. There comes a point when this person doesn't just reject God's voice. They call it a lie. They call God's work something dirty. They call light darkness. And they don't do it once in a nervous outburst. They build their entire identity on that rejection. That's the heart of the issue. It's not about one isolated mistake. It's about a process. A process where someone, seeing clearly God's action, decides to label it as something despicable. They decide to shut the door from the inside, and they keep doing it until they become completely numb. Picture a door God keeps open. On the other side, He insists, "Come back." There is forgiveness. There is grace. There is a new chance. But on the human side, someone begins to push that door shut. Once, again, and again. His voice confronts them, shows them, corrects them, calls them, and the answer is always the same. "I don't care. I don't want your light. Whatever comes from you, I don't want it in my life." Over time, that door doesn't just close. It seals, not because God has lost the power to forgive, but because that person has chosen to reject so deeply and so repeatedly the only source of forgiveness that exists, that there is no longer even a desire in them to return. There is no room left for repentance. The root has been burned from within. This is what many describe as the sin without forgiveness. Not because God becomes less merciful, but because the human being, through a proud and sustained decision, kills in themselves the willingness to respond to God's call. If someone keeps canceling over and over the only voice that can bring them back, how will they ever return? I want you to see something important. There is an enormous difference between someone who struggles with guilt, shame, doubts, falls, but deep down wants to be right with God, and someone who with full clarity chooses to treat God's work as something disgusting, consciously hating what they know comes from Him. You are not listening to this by accident. You're not here to collect strange information. You are here because, at some level, you want to know if there is still hope for you. And that desire already reveals something deep. The door is not sealed. Let's think of a real-life example. Someone grows up hearing about God. They're not perfect. They mess up. But they have moments of faith. At some point, they drift away. They get entangled in guilt, addictions, foolish decisions. In a dark moment, when everything feels like it's collapsing, they sense an inner voice confronting them, showing their selfishness, their lies, their damage, and at the same time, inviting them back. That mix of truth and love is one way God calls. This person cries, struggles, resists, falls again. Sometimes they promise to change and can't. Sometimes they explode against God, say harsh things, and then feel ashamed. Then they search for Him again. They ask again. They need Him again. That struggle reveals something essential. God's work is still active. It has not been cut off. The door is not sealed. The sin without forgiveness is not being afraid you've committed it. It's not crying, thinking, I think I ruined everything. It's not having said something terrible in a moment of despair. It's not having doubted. It's not having gone through a cold season. The real danger is something else, becoming so used to resisting God's voice that you reach a point where you simply don't care. When you see good and call it evil. When you see changed lives and signs of grace, and inside you label them as trash, deception, something unworthy. Not out of confusion, but out of proud choice. That constant hardening is like adding layers over the heart, layer after layer, until nothing is felt anymore. When there is no feeling left, when light irritates, when mercy annoys, when truth is consciously hated, there is no space for that inner turning we call repentance. Maybe you're thinking, but I've spoken badly. I got angry with God. I said ugly things. I doubted. A simple fact that today you wonder if there is still forgiveness, if there is hope, if it's possible to return, is evidence that you have not crossed that line. A person who has completely sealed their heart does not come looking for answers in anguish. They don't spend nights thinking, what if I've lost everything? They don't feel pain for having offended God. They don't grieve the distance. They feel nothing. If you feel, if you care, if you want clarity, if you want to return, that is not a sign of condemnation. It is a sign that God is still knocking at your door. At this point, I want to invite you to do something concrete. Don't leave this at just listening. Right where you are, acknowledge before God. I'm afraid. I don't understand everything, but I don't want to shut the door. I don't want to call evil what comes from you. I don't want to keep running away from the only voice that can heal me. That honesty is worth more than 1,000 appearances. Stay with me until the end, because there is still a key piece missing. How to guard your heart so you don't slide into that hardening, and how to embrace the assurance that God is not looking for excuses to discard you, but for ways to draw you closer. Imagine God switches on a light in front of you. That light exposes uncomfortable things, pride, envy, hatred, hypocrisy, self-reliance. It doesn't feel good. The natural reaction is to defend yourself. Everyone's like this. It's not that serious. I'm fine. Every time you do that, you push the light a little further away. But the light returns through words, conversations, breaking points. And once again, you have a choice. Humble yourself or harden yourself. The sin without forgiveness does not appear overnight. It is the result of choosing hardening again and again. It is seeing God at work, touching the truth, seeing good, and consciously deciding to call it a lie, manipulation, something vile. It is saying to the only source of forgiveness, I don't want you. I don't need you. I'm not interested. And holding that stance to the end. This is not about God, enjoying the rejection of anyone. It's about God, at some point, respecting the decision of the one who insists on shutting off the light. He doesn't force anyone to love what they've decided to hate. That's why the sin without forgiveness is not something you commit by accident. It's not a secret trap set for people who love God. It's not a random phrase you said without thinking. It's not a passing thought that crossed your mind. It is a final posture, a sustained decision against the only source of forgiveness. If you love God, if it hurts you to fail Him, if you're afraid you've gone too far, you are precisely not the kind of person who has crossed that line. If this message is bringing a bit of light, hold on to this. There are people living with a knot in their throat over this very issue. Don't trivialize it. Don't fuel their fear with shallow explanations. And don't put on yourself a weight that God never put on you. Maybe you say, when I was younger, I said horrible things against God. Does that mean there's no forgiveness for me? There are words that come out of wounds, out of ignorance, out of rage. That is serious, yes, but it is not the same as a cold, conscious, sustained decision to call disgusting what you know comes from Him. The problem is not that you fell. The problem is loving the fall so much that you end up hating the light that wants to lift you up. Maybe you confess, I've had blasphemous thoughts that scare me. Intrusive thoughts are often not decisions. They are inner attacks, involuntary connections. The one who suffers because of those thoughts is not declaring final war against God. They're fighting. And that fight is a sign of life, not of condemnation. Or you say, I walked away even though I knew things. I chose wrong knowing better. Is that unforgivable? It's serious, yes. But if today you feel the weight of it, if it hurts, if you wish you could come back and don't know how, that is a sign that the door is still open. He has not sealed it. You've just spent too long watching from a distance. Don't use the idea of the sin without forgiveness to crown your self-hatred. Use it for what it truly is. A clear warning not to turn into a permanent mocker of the very hand that is still reaching out to you. Here's another picture. A candle lit in a dark room. Every time God speaks, the flame comes a little closer, revealing what's inside you. You have two options. Allow that light to transform you or blow it out. The first time, you blow it out. The second time, you do it faster. The third time, you don't even let it get close. Until in the end, there is no candle, not because God can't light it, but because you have turned putting it out into your identity. That is what it means to harden your heart until the door is sealed. As long as you don't want that, as long as there is something in you that says, I don't want to shut the door, as long as you feel unsettled, as long as you seek answers, you are not on the other side. There is something alive in you that God can still touch. If this message is bringing order to your thoughts, don't consume it as just another piece of content. Treat it as a moment of encounter. Keep these words for the next time fear screams at you. Remind yourself, the real sin without forgiveness is not stumbling while reaching for the light. It's definitively rejecting that light once you know it. And if guilt ever whispers, you already crossed the line, answer with this truth. The one who has crossed that line doesn't wrestle, doesn't ask, doesn't seek, doesn't grieve. You do. Now listen carefully to what I want to leave absolutely clear. The sin without forgiveness is not a dark riddle to confuse you. It is a clear line so that those who love the truth don't to live enslaved to fears that don't to belong to them. and so that those who play with the light stop before it's too late. If you love God, you are not rejected for seeking his face while trembling. You are not discarded for coming with doubts and tears. You are not cast out for asking questions with fear. The real danger is not in the one who runs toward him afraid, but in the one who walks away in pride and never looks back. As long as you keep coming back to the door, you are still standing where grace moves. Today, once again, the door is open before you. Don't be the one to shut it. If this message has lit something in your heart, don't bury it. There is someone you know who lives with this same fear, convinced there is no hope left. Share this with that person before they keep believing a lie. Let this clarity reach someone who is one step away from giving up. And if you need to keep receiving words that explain with truth and calm what almost no one takes the time to clarify, stay here. Don't walk alone when God is using each teaching to draw you closer, not push you away. Leave in the comments what you felt, your questions, your story. We are going to read them. We're going to walk together. That simple decision is also a way of saying, I don't want to close the door.